When the film The Wolf of Wall Street hit cinemas recently, it was a box office hit. The Hollywood juggernaut was based on the real-life story of Jordan Belfort. The one-time stockbroker spent 22 months in prison for fraud and money laundering after ripping off investors to the tune of more than $100 million. Today, Jordan Belfort insists he's a changed man. In fact, he's coming to Australia, selling his tale of redemption and the importance of ethics in business at high-priced seminars. But the real Wolf of Wall Street may not be all he seems, and authorities in the US want to know what's happening to his newfound fortune.
2, 3!
My name is Jordan Belfort. Not him. Me.
Leonardo DiCaprio playing you instantly glamorizes you. You realise that, don't you? Makes you very attractive.
Thank you.
Mr. Jordan Belfort!
When Leonardo DiCaprio portrayed the Wolf of Wall Street,
I'm talking about this.
Jordan Belfort's story was given a Hollywood polish.
Sorry, Mr. Belfort!
Forbes made me a superstar.
Do you think that was a good thing? Should you have been an attractive person?
Well, I prefer him than Danny DeVito playing me, I'd probably say, although I love Danny DeVito and everything. I'm not saying I'm as handsome as Leo, it's not about that, but I had that charisma for sure. That was part of who I was. So to try to have someone with that lacked the charisma that I had and still have, to try to pull that off, it would have been ridiculous.
But in truth, Jordan Belfort's life was one of deceit, depravity, and drugs. The former stockbroker defrauded his investors of millions of dollars before ending up behind bars. Does it glamorise your crime then? Does that film glamorise what you did?
I think it glamorizes things that are glamorous. Some of the stuff is glamorous. And I think if you walk into that movie and you can't, if you walk out thinking, I want to do just that, then you have a problem. And you walked into the movie with a serious problem.
It was a life of debauchery.
Totally.
And you smile when you say that.
Smile. I usually smile when I'm embarrassed about something.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's my way of, when I'm embarrassed about something, I'll give a little, you know. I mean, how can you not be a little bit embarrassed about it, you know?
Well, what embarrasses you most about that time?
I mean, listen, some of the stuff with, you know, with the hookers and the and that sort of stuff. Obviously now is, you know, a person sober for 17 years, you know, where I'm doing cocaine and off of, like as you saw in the movie, off of, you know, a hooker's derriere, okay? So that sort of stuff obviously is a tad embarrassing to me, you know?
Belfort got out of jail 8 years ago after having ripped off more than 1,500 investors of more than $100 million. He's now 51, rebuilding his life and wealth and living on Hermosa Beach outside of Los Angeles. So life is good?
Life is great. I mean, I'm happier today than I've ever been in my entire life. I've never been happier. And I know why, too. And it's because, you know, I'm nothing over my shoulder I'm looking at, and I look ahead and I just see a really nice future.
Jordan Belfort grew up here in the middle-class suburb of Bayside, New York. It seems to me, even as a kid, you were destined to be an entrepreneur of some sort.
I learned my first marketing lesson at the age of 8, and then I started shoveling driveways after snowstorms at 10, did magic shows at 12.
Magic shows?
Magic shows, The Amazing Belfort, yeah.
This desire to make money, did that sort of was a life force from very early, was it?
It was, yeah.
And it was Wall Street where Belfort would fulfill that burning ambition to become rich.
So when I walked into this brokerage firm, you know, I had to show my energy, and it's true. In the movie, they say I pitched the stock to my to the guy hiring me, and what they don't say is a really classic line. Is he looked at me, and goes, "Wow," because I've never. He goes, "Whoa, slow down, slow down." And never met anybody like you. He goes, either one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to end up being the biggest broker in Wall Street history, or you're going to end up in jail. The guy was a genius. He was right on both accounts. So there you go.
By 1989, Belfort was running his own investment banking firm, Stratton Oakmont, here on Long Island. It was the setting for what would become a lifestyle of extraordinary excess. Was it as excessive as we're led to believe?
Yeah, it was an over-obsession of drugs, hookers, spending money as much as you could spend, boats, planes, helicopters. But you know what? He understands about one thing, greed, and about success, and the big one, he prays to the dollar. He loves money.
Private investigator and former NYPD detective Bo Dietl got to see Belford up close. He was hired to build and maintain security for Stratton Oakmont and even played himself in the film.
He's trying to rattle you. He's trying to rattle your old lady so she nags you until you become a witness.
Dietl became one of Belford's close friends, but today his views of Belford are not so friendly.
He's smart, you're dumb.
He's a punk, and if he doesn't like it, I don't think he can do too much about it. See, it's here and it's there. He may have it here, but he ain't got it there.
Belford's scam was fairly simple. His staff of mostly young brokers were given the job of reeling in investors with legitimate stocks, then eventually pressuring them to buy shares in worthless stock. Using a technique called pump and dump, the company would force share prices up, then sell off their own shares, leaving investors penniless. You actually said that you were able to take imbeciles, basically, and turn them into cracking stockbrokers who could make millions. And you gave them a script, which was ultimately to show them how to lie, wasn't it?
The idea of having the script wasn't to teach them how to lie. It was teach them not to lie. When I walked into that firm...
But it was about teaching them how to manipulate.
No, it wasn't like that. It was, no, you see, the scripts, the sales itself.
But what you were wanting them to do was to sell and
to close deals.
To close the
Yes.
deal. But to close the deal quite often meant that you had to really manipulate the client.
Well,
That's ultimately what ended up happening.
Now, remember I said in the beginning it wasn't like that. Ultimately, yes, as the ethics went down the tube.
So you're asking for your money back.
Get
me out.
3 or 4 different phone calls. I mean, screaming matches, at the top of my lungs. We were calling each other every name in the book, trying to get my money out of the thing.
66-year-old Bob Sheeran was one of Stratton Oakmont's victims. He was in the garment business and lost $150,000.
Was primed to fall for a scam. They were good at their scam.
But that puts the onus on you and not on Belford.
Well, I guess if I don't accept part of the onus, then all I got out of it was losing a lot of money.
It was never about all for us and screw the client. It was all about we're going to make the clients a ton of money, we're going to make a ton of money, and the firm's going to make a ton. Everyone's going to succeed.
But what wasn't one of your mottos, don't hang up until the client either buys or dies?
Yes.
Well, what's the message in that?
But that doesn't mean that the client is not going to make money if he buys.
But as far as 81-year-old Alfred Witt is concerned, the intention was always to steal from him.
And they would not take no for an answer. You try to sell and they'd say, oh no, you should do this and do that. So got to the point where I was borrowing money to invest in his so-called stock, and I ended up losing quite a bit of money.
Can I ask you how much money you lost?
$250,000. Oh, I love the outdoors. Like I say, I'm out here an hour or two every day, and I mow my own yard.
Like Bob Sheeran, Alfred Witt got a call out of the blue and lured into Stratton Oakmont's scam. He was in his early 60s when he lost his money and spent some years after struggling to make ends meet. So losing $250,000 at that point in your life would have been devastating.
It would, especially when you're thinking you're going to make some money and then ended up losing that much, yes.
And how long did it take you to recoup that money?
Well, probably till I retired. I kept working till I was 70 years old to help pay back the banks and things that I borrowed money from.
Do you feel that some of these investors should take some responsibility for what happened to their money?
No, I don't. I think it's a loaded question. I think that the answer, that anyone else could say yes, except for me.
Well, what do you feel in your heart?
No matter what their part in it, I still did things wrong. Okay, so if someone is worth $20 million and loses $300,000, that's terrible, but it's not a tragedy. If someone's worth $300,000 and loses $200,000, that's a nightmare. So I do have colors of this. I think it's much, much worse when someone doesn't have a lot of money, loses a substantial amount of money.
Surely it should be, it's all bad.
I believe it's all bad. I disagree with you 100%. I think there's degrees of bad.
You think there are degrees
Absolutely.
of bad
And
in what you did?
they all start at really bad. But there's really bad and then horrifically bad. Yes.
And is it because you feel that they were wealthy and they could afford to lose some money?
Certainly so, yeah.
How do you feel about Jordan Belfort claiming his victims were rich people?
Well, I can assure you I was not there. I was working hard trying to get a business built. And I kind of have two reactions to that. One of them is, so what? You know, a thief is a thief. So I found that kind of a interesting, self-serving comment that shows his lack of remorse.
Jordan Belfort maintains that his victims were rich people, and he actually says that in part they should take responsibility for having lost their money.
Oh, really? He was a damn thief. He was a rat. He set these people up. That's the facts. I'm angry at him.
Coming up, the law catches up with Jordan Belfort. Do you recall the day you were arrested?
Yes. At some level, it was relief. I've said enough about this. Let's move on.
And the wolf, let me ask you this one
Let's
thing
move on,
though.
okay?
Bares his teeth. Is that an attempt to hide your income?
Wait, I'm not going to get attacked here, so I'm done with this. Next.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Jordan Belfort is the real Wolf of Wall Street, the one-time stockbroker on whom the Hollywood blockbuster was based. His was a life of debauchery and fraud, a crime for which ultimately he would be sent to prison. Now a free man and a motivational speaker, Belfort says he's a redeemed man who is repaying his victims. But as we discovered, the new wolf might not be all he claims to be. After years of making and spending millions of dollars, Jordan Belfort's world came crashing down when he was arrested in 1996. His fall was as spectacular as his rise. Do you recall the day you were arrested?
Yes. Because I knew I was under investigation, and like it was really weird. I'd get a subpoena, and then wouldn't hear anything for 6 months. Then another subpoena, so it's like you're dying in slow motion. So when I finally got arrested, I felt sort of relieved.
But relief quickly turned to reality. Facing the prospect of more than 20 years jail, he did a deal with the FBI and testified against his mates. You had to rat on your friends to achieve a reduced sentence. Was that a good thing to have done?
Well, this is a good question. You know, I think I didn't do a very good job at it because I ended up slipping my friend a note.
But nonetheless, you made the decision.
Number one, I had no choice because they were threatening to indict my wife.
But it wasn't just one mate. You had to give evidence against a number of people.
Well, 90% of the people I gave evidence against were already giving evidence against it. Everyone was cooperating at the same time, so it wasn't sort of like I'm the only one, everyone was.
Jordan Belfort was sentenced to 4 years jail for defrauding his clients and ordered to pay restitution of $110 million, the money to come from 50% of his gross earnings. But Jordan Belfort argues that that court order only applied during his period of probation, which ended in 2009. Needless to say, the US Department of Justice and his victims have a very different view. How much have you gotten back?
About 8,000.
8,000 out of 250,000.
Plus, I had to pay my attorney, you know, when she was working on that. So I'm lost more than that.
So you're really out of pocket.
Yeah.
Do you believe redemption means that you repay your victims 100%?
Well, I'd like to know, I think, listen, I'm doing my best. In my mind, I always said it would be the greatest ending to the story, that every person got paid back every penny. And that would be the greatest ending to the story. and I really hope that happens.
So far, it hasn't happened. Documents provided by the US Department of Justice show as of October last year, Jordan Belfort had paid more than $11 million. The bulk of funds, though, coming from the sale of assets.
If I've learned one thing over the years, it's the value of building solid relationships.
Certainly, Jordan Belfort is making good money.
Hey everybody, Jordan Belfort here, author of The Wolf of Wall Street.
He's written 2 bestsellers about his criminal past, sold the movie rights, and since established himself as a highly paid speaker on the international circuit, selling himself as a guru of business ethics.
And I have to tell you this, some people think sales is a dirty word. Selling is everything in life.
And I think that, one of the fundamental changes I went through when I got out of jail is I was like, I am never going to engage in another transaction or do another deal or get involved in any business at all where other people are not getting at least more value than I'm asking for in return for money.
The point is I'm a little bit older and wiser now, okay?
But the self-styled redeemed Belfort doesn't seem to have convinced the US authorities. While there is still money to be distributed to investors, the Justice Department believes Belfort has an ongoing obligation to hand over half his gross earnings. It claims he made no payment in 2010 and paid only $21,000 in 2011, despite having received more than $940,000 for the rights to the film. Not to mention having sold, in Australia alone, a total of 195,000 copies of his books. According to the Justice Department, you just didn't sell any books, for example, in 2010, 11 and 12.
It's correct.
You sold no books?
No books. Well, no, I sold books, but there's huge advances, and until you recoup your advances, then you start to pay. But I haven't made a penny. Every penny since the original advances goes to investors. I haven't gotten 1 penny.
The Justice Department would also like to know more about Belfort's earnings in Australia. It says it's not able to subpoena records from the Fordham Company, Belfort's management, because it is based in Australia. Belfort's agreement with the company is oral only. There's no suggestion the company is doing anything wrong, and Belfort believes he's being unfairly targeted by the Department of Justice.
To me, they have very little credibility right now. I've been trying to settle this thing for years, and they've essentially stonewalled me at every step. So I've said enough about this. Let's move on.
Let me ask you this one
Let's
thing,
move on,
though.
okay? Honestly, I'm ready. I'm not going to get attacked here. You're here, so I'm done with this. Next.
I'm not attacking you.
No, but honestly,
I'm just.
You're a very nice woman, but you're starting to get to the point. It's obviously just a hatchet shop here, so I'm kind of pretty much ready to move on.
There's nothing hatchet about it.
Well, to me there is.
Well, the last thing is that apparently you have an oral contract with your management, the Fordham Company. Is that an attempt to hide your income?
Next question.
I think the peanut gallery is going to start shining really quickly. We've been audited.
I think you can air what you want here out of this interview. It's done.
Why
Oh my God, you got a lot of nerve, boy. I'll tell you. Honestly, really. Honestly.
Why
really,
can't I
that is
ask
just
these
honestly,
questions?
and I was told this was a friendly, nice interview, and no one has ever treated me as disrespectfully as you have, really. Okay?
The Wolf of Wall Street uses his criminal past to sell his future. But try as he might, he hasn't been able to convince everyone he's a new man.
And I get real angry when people steal and get something for nothing.
And you believe that's Jordan Belfort?
Oh, yeah. What, do you believe he's a hero or a Robin Hood? Do you really believe that you could look upon him and have any sort of respect for him? Not I.
Do you believe the victims will ever see their money?
I believe the U.S. government should get off their butt, and they're the ones that should hold him to task to pay for this stuff.
All right, okay. Let's Eventually, a still displeased but more composed Jordan Belfort returned to finish the interview. What is your one greatest regret?
My greatest regrets for sure is losing people money. Absolutely. If I could have done, if people say, would you change anything? I said, I just wouldn't lose people money. Perfect.
I like rock sushi better than
Yeah?
courtesy crispy rice, don't you?
Yeah.
Today, Jordan Belfort lives a very comfortable life with his fiancée, Anne.
Don't you look good?
He says he's a different person, sober, honest, and ethical.
What a life you have.
And that 100% of all money he receives from his books and the movie will be given to his victims.
This is my pretty flower over here.
Those victims, however, are not holding their breath and believe any talk of redemption is somewhat premature.
I would caution those people who are accepting his messages, just be careful, know who your messenger is.
What would you say to the victims?
Wow. Well, first, of course, I'm sorry for what happened, and that not a day goes by in my own life where, I in some way don't pay for it. And if you look at other people in my position, I'm the only one who, over the long term, has been paying back investors. So, and I'm proud of that. And, my goal one day would be to pay back all the money. Can I? I hope so. No guarantees.